You may excuse yourself, my friend. I would be like, hey, I found this great podcast that I want you to listen to because you always do everything wrong. Oh my gosh, what is... Oh.
They wouldn't do that.
Hello and welcome to the Anatomy of Marriage podcast. I'm your host, Melanie Studley, and this is...
Darn it.
Hello and welcome to the Anatomy of Marriage podcast. It's nice to see you.
Yeah.
So my name is Melanie Studley.
And my name is Seth.
And we are now doing video series because a very nice listener wrote in and said that his wife didn't want to listen to the podcast but would watch us on a video. So asked if we could make videos of us podcasting, and that's what we're doing. So
Yep.
So today, go ahead.
No. First, I want to say, as a therapist, I've run into tons of couples when one person of the couple comes in and their wife or their husband is very hesitant to come in. So this is a very common problem. It's like stumbling upon something good. You want to share it. Hey, this will help. But convincing your spouse to come on board can be really difficult sometimes.
Yeah. And so this is going to be the episode where we ask our listeners' spouses who don't want to listen to the podcast, what's the deal? And then I'm going to offer up some of the best snippets of past episodes to kind of give you an idea of what the show is like and what we're doing now. So
Some zingers.
Some zingers.
Right? Some good pieces of advice, some heartfelt moments, stuff like that, right?
So since this is an episode for people who aren't familiar with the show, season 1 was all about our horrifically terrible marriage. When we were married for 5 years, I had just given birth to our second son in 15 months, and Seth confessed that he had been looking at pornography and lying to our therapists about it and our church group and me about it. And we had been in therapy, we had been in church stuff all the time.
Yeah.
And his confession came 2 weeks after the birth of our second son, and I lost my mind. I shouldn't have. I shouldn't have, but I did. Not that what you did was great, but it also wasn't like the end of the world.
It shouldn't have been grounds for divorce or anything like that. And then following the next 2 years, which there was domestic violence from Melanie to me and all kinds of just literal craziness that should have completely destroyed our marriage. We wanted to make a podcast about it. We wanted to make a podcast of how we got through it. Right.
Because when we were in that really dark season, I was looking for marriage books and marriage resources, and all I could find were things from people who looked like they had perfect lives. They had lots of money. They had lots of free time. They could pay to get their nails done. They didn't punch their face. They didn't punch their husband in the face.
They wouldn't do things like this on the video.
Oh my gosh. What is...
They wouldn't do that.
I'm sorry.
And can you show a little dance moves right now?
No, I'm explaining. But anyway, it just was too clean, too polished for me, and I didn't find much of it helpful. So after about 5 years of getting through the really, really hard time of our marriage and not getting divorced and not committing suicide and not doing all the things that we kind of were on the track to do, we realized this is actually a resource. We can actually share this with people in a different way. So if your partner is coming to you, or even your friend or whatever, your boyfriend or your girlfriend, saying, please listen to this podcast. Part of the reason that they want you to listen to it is because it is really real. We're showing that we don't have it all together. We're learning with you and walking through this process as a community.
Right.
And we do not have the answers to everything, but we point you to the people that do have answers. So,
we point you to the people that have really good insights and maybe some personal experience. And we ourselves are going to celebrate 14 years of marriage coming up in August.
Maybe. Just kidding. We are.
If the show goes good. And we've collected a little bit of wisdom along the way. 14 years of marriage. We've gone up and down. And so we have some things to share too. Like I said at the top of the thing, I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, so I have some clinical knowledge, some experiential knowledge from speaking to hundreds of clients and lots of couples. And here's the thing, like Melanie said, we don't have it all together, and we don't want to act like we have it all together because I don't believe that is real. It's not transparent, and it is not helpful at the end of the day when your stuff is going sideways in your marriage and you're up at 3 a.m. fussing again about the same thing.
Fussing is a very polite way of saying screaming at one another.
Cussing and arguing, right? And sleeping on the couch.
Clearing structure,
yeah.
Yeah, and so what I would like to do, which I think would be really cool, is let's do an episode about sort of that next step. So let's say that I had found a podcast and I said, hey, Seth, we're in this really hard time in our marriage, or maybe I just want our marriage to be better or more fun or more whatever. And I show it to you and you feel a little bit like, back off, lady.
No, thank you.
So what would it feel like? What would we suggest for the partner who is being asked to listen to this show? What do we say?
I would say, okay, if it was you and you wanted to share something with me, you absolutely would have to share it and saying how much it meant to you.
Yeah.
Right? You wouldn't say, hey, dummy, listen to this because, you're stupid.
Well, that is probably how I would do it. Let's be real. I am very bad at that.
That's how you.
I would blame him. I would be like, hey, I found this great podcast that I want you to listen to because you always do everything wrong.
Right.
That's like literally what I do.
Yeah, kind of like a sideways, here, I want to help you because you're so stupid kind of thing.
You're terrible.
Right? And so it has to be really transparent and honest. So you could only say, on our website, we have a free clearing structure PDF. And if you wanted to share a website, if you wanted to share a podcast or a website, and you guys have some conflict contextually brewing here, use the clearing structure to share something like this.
Yeah. And
you don't have to say, hey, when I feel when you listen to a podcast, blah, blah, blah. No, it's this really helped me. And at minute 2.38, there was this really cool part, and it made me think about my life and how I view things. And you know what? Because it brought so much insight to me, it may be helpful for you to either understand me more or understand yourself. If you want to listen to it, great. I really hope that you do because I really, really believe that it's helpful. Yeah,
and I think too, along with the clearing structure idea, if you're the partner saying, hey, I would like you to listen to this, it would be really awesome if you actually had like time-stamped notes, like in episode 7 when they talked about sexual trauma at minute 17, that really spoke to me because of my childhood. And that will give your partner immense insight that a conversation might not ever reveal.
And maybe induce a little bit of empathy towards you, whatever you went through, if that makes sense. And here's another thing. Make it easy for your partner to listen to it. So don't say, yeah, listen to this podcast and it was awesome. Well, okay, where's it at? We'll just go find it on the website. Yeah. No, send them the actual link. Just text it to them. You can do that with anything, basically, nowadays. Anything. And all they have to do is press play on their smartphone or open it up as an attachment in their email.
Go to our website. We can watch it on the website.
Make it easy for them. In fact, you can watch this video through, I don't know, our YouTube channel.
Why do you no, let's not do that. So anyway.
Not yet? Too soon?
No, way too soon. So then the other side of that too is if you're the partner who is having your boyfriend or girlfriend or spouse or whatever is asking you to watch this podcast, listen to the podcast, watch this video. I would say it's a bid for closeness. It's not, and unless they're like, watch this, you dumb idiot. That's different. That's not a bid for closeness. Not a bid. Well, I mean, it could be, but it's a bad bid. But try to look at it from, my spouse wants to connect with me better. My spouse wants to be at a different level with me, and this is a way to get there. This is the pathway to find closeness, and this is the way that they are trying to do that. So we have to figure out a way to have a lot more grace with one another in giving and receiving this podcast and sharing the podcast in that way. So,
and mention it to them at a time that you may know that they'll be able to listen to it if they have a commute to work or to watch it even if they have a lunch break at work or, I don't know, right before bed or anything like that. I think what I'm saying is be really intentional about how you request that they watch this or listen to this, how you set it up, how you give the information to them, and also the timing as well. You're not going to throw it at them after you're kind of irritated. You want to do it maybe in the morning after she ate breakfast or he ate breakfast or whatever, right? Just be really intentional about it, and I think that you will set yourself up for success if you set your spouse up for success by way of them listening to the show.
Yeah. And okay, so now is the part where we're going to put in some audio clips from season 1 of our journey and some of the people that we interviewed and give you a taste of what the podcast is about.
I remember I said, no, it's not mine, and you were yelling, and then you tried to kick me. You came around and just punched me square in the face.
People have hopes and dreams that it's going to be different, and yet they don't have the skills or the tools to do it differently because they haven't learned them yet.
Yeah.
I think that part of me is a little resentful. I had to give up this giant portion of my life, and I don't feel like you did.
And so I had worked so hard at pushing aside who I was to try to become what I thought you wanted me to become.
The idea of a couple is not to become like a smoothie where they become identical to each other because you've blended them together, but rather to learn how to honor, in fact, thrive on differences.
Do you think that I don't care? I mean, why would I do this? Do you think this is a personal attack? You think I'm doing this to harm you? Do you think I would do that? Don't you understand that I'm doing things the best way that I think they ought to be done? Because I do care.
So that biological part of us is something that we can't really compromise.
All of these weird physical things, it just feels like I get them over and over and over again. And I feel like those are isolating and that Seth doesn't understand them.
Right.
I'm maybe 6 years old. I'm standing outside of the bathroom door. My mom's in the bathtub, and my dad's got his hair blow dryer, and they're in a yelling fit. It's plugged into the wall, and he throws it into the tub at her.
Yeah, it's actually called phenylethylamine, and it literally floods your brain, and it gives you that euphoric feeling. It's a chemically induced high, and so it gives you that obsessive, longing high.
And now your amygdala is activated instead of just your anterior cingulate cortex, which is responsible for compassion and empathy, and some scientists would say love. But you can't shift a relationship to an entirely analytical context. You'll change your brain's understanding of that person to just an idea.
Those are pleasure chemicals that are really introduced in the brain. And so those can be nurtured too. Those aren't things that are just kind of, you're just waiting for them to happen. You can actually attend and pay attention.
We all come into a relationship with these unconscious and super powerful expectations about how that person should behave based on what we saw in our homes growing up. And that might be something we want modeled and repeated, or it may be just the opposite of that.
I think I kept thinking, well, when we have kids, I'll be a better wife, I'll be a better mom. I really thought I was going to be a 1950s housewife.
In our minds, we set sex aside because we learn so little about it, or our education about it is so skewed, either against or for, that we set it aside like it's its own thing, like it's not connected to our emotional state. It's not connected to our past. It's not connected to our fears or insecurities, right? Which we know is not correct.
Sex is such a loaded topic with so many couples, and I believe we really set couples up to not know how to do intimacy well at all in our culture.
You've got one and your husband has another. So part of it is this breathing into that metacognitive skill.
Being on the road with guys in a band is kind of like a marriage in a way. Everyone's in close proximity. We have to live together, and we have to compromise, and we have to overcome struggle and adversity together. And then you throw an actual marriage in the mix, it becomes really difficult.
It's very natural to think that way. And so when you relax into the emergence of the mind as being fully embodied and fully relational, then it gets actually quite exciting, and you can move beyond a belief you may have had before that things are fixed like a rock, and you own them and say, wow, I'm participating in this ride of my life. How do I optimize this experience, rather than how do I lock onto this rock noun-like view of who I am?
I don't know how to describe it other than just especially dark, demonic sorts of days. And those days when you're weeping and curled up in a corner. I feel like the thing that always haunted me on those days was this: you messed up, you aren't good enough.
You say that almost simply, like, oh, I might be embarrassed for 20 minutes, but you'd have to think about, based on people's behavior, let's look at how huge embarrassment must actually be, that it competes with safety.
We, at least I, always had some sort of unwavering, undying hope that things would be different. And I think for the listeners of this podcast, that's one of the main things that we want you to take away from this is there is hope. You've heard our story. You've heard the worst of us, and we're still here, right? 12 years later, we are still here, and we still have open minds towards one another. We're still malleable for change.
And we're not just wanting ourselves personally to grow. We want the other to grow. So I want to see you grow as much as I see myself grow. You know what I mean? And learn more. I'm being your cheerleader in a sense, in a new way that doesn't feel scary or stupid or like the church tells me I have to. I genuinely am like, when you learn, I learn. When you grow, I grow.
Right. When I win, you win. And we're back. So the main thing is we wanted to create resources, create a podcast, create videos that we wish that we had in our early days of marriage, and especially the times that we were going through all the crap. And I think that we are currently creating material, creating content that we like to listen to anyway. Whenever, and this is no lie, whenever a new episode comes out, I listen to it and I'm reminded by the great wisdom from the people that we talked to, the things that we both said, and the feeling that I got, I think, making the podcast even, which sounds weird, but...
You don't make the podcast, let's be clear.
Well, when we record it. So
I make it.
She makes all the stuff. I have a lot of the great ideas, though.
But we literally learn from our own podcast, and I have to sit and edit for hours. Each episode takes a very long time, and especially season 1, which was highly produced and had multiple interviews in every episode and all these different things to kind of juggle and place. And I have learned so much by the sheer fact that I've had to edit and redo and like move things around and all of that stuff. So it's really cool to be impacted by your own work. That was really all. The person who is being asked to listen to the podcast or to watch these videos, your spouse is doing this because they love you, not because they think you're dumb or they're mad or whatever. If that's how they're treating you, they don't really even like this podcast.
No, that is a really good point. Your spouse is only wanting, well, maybe 95% of people are listening to this. They are only wanting the relationship that they're in with you to get better. So take that
not because you're dumb, not because so
if they're saying it that way, then you're wrong for that.
Yeah.
So don't say it that way. Your spouse is wanting you to grow with them as they listen to this podcast, as they get insights into themselves, to a family of origin, all the stuff that we talk about. They want you to come along with them, just like that. Hey, listen to this great stuff. We're going to do this together, and we're going to benefit and grow from it, right? So where can they find the podcast, Mel?
On iTunes. Well, anywhere. It's Anatomy of Marriage. Our website is anatomyofmarriage.com.
And our email address is anatomyofmarriage@gmail.com.
And we have a Facebook community. We have private women's and men's groups, private couples groups, or just private group, and then a general group that's open to everyone. And the reason that we created those things is so that people feel safe to share. So in the women's group, we share personal things all the time. It could be anything about what we fought about with our partner, or maybe we got in a fight with our in-laws, or maybe we are having a hard time nursing our newborn and we don't know what to do. The group, women's group, shares these things as an encouragement and to share the wisdom and the knowledge that this group has, and to be a safe place. We are all in it together, supportively and thoughtfully and kindly. We're not being mean or judgmental. So,
and all those resources are free. Anatomyofmarriage.com. You can grab the free 89 page marriage workbook. You can grab the clearing structure.
Well, clarify. So it's season 1 has an entire workbook that I wrote and an audio version of the workbook. So you don't even have to read the workbook, but in the PDF that you can download for free, you have fillable little slots so you can answer all these questions about family of origin, communication, expectations, sex, identity. These are amazing questions, and it's an amazing resource. It's all yours. Take it.
And
you
it's
don't
free.
Need to, yeah, it's pay, don't pay for it.
100% intentional. We didn't want to put anybody out because maybe they don't have financial means for it. So let's make it free. Speaking of financial stuff, we do have a Patreon page. You can go there, patreon.com/anatomy of marriage, and donate. If anything on this website or videos or podcast have been helpful,
floats your boat,
floats your marriage boat, then we ask you to donate. Support what you love. That's what we do. Forgo a coffee once a week.
Forgo a coffee, isn't that?
Okay, forgo the nachos. Or Taco Bell.
But if you want to support us, you can. If you don't. If you want to support us and you don't want to pay to support us, go to iTunes and rate and review the show. But you were talking about our resources. That's how we were talking about that.
Right.
So go to anatomyofmarriage.com. You can get the PDF and the workbook. You can get the clearing structure that we talk about. There's an entire episode that talks about clearing structure. It's got the worst title ever. It's like how to know what you want and why you want it. Worst title ever, but you can search.
Did I name that?
I did.
Oh, well.
You can search in our
website.
You can just search in the little, magnifying glass icon, clearing structure, and it will pop up.
And
there's other things too. There's the letting go PDF.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Which is really helpful. And these are all therapeutic techniques and things that Seth has used with clients, but we found super helpful in our own relationship, and our listeners are finding really, really helpful as well.
Yeah. So drop us a line on Facebook, instant message. We really get back to emails and fans pretty quickly. If you have questions, we absolutely are dying to answer them, literally. So send us those questions, send us the comments. Like Melanie said, please, please, please go to iTunes and rate and review the show. That puts us higher and higher up so more people can find the show. Anything else?
Well, yeah, I just want to say again, before we departeth, that if your partner is coming to you with this, it is because they love you. If they're doing it in a bad way, tell them that they can eat some Duke and then tell them to call a therapist. You're allowed. You can say, Melanie said so. But they're doing this because they love you. They care about you. And
that's a good
sometimes it's very hard when we're upset at each other or have been hurt by that. I mean, I know, like, if you had suggested that I listen to a podcast after the crap that I felt like you caused in our marriage, I'd be like, ha! You may excuse yourself, my friend.
Right. However,
I'm talking here.
Oh, sorry.
But so I just want to encourage you that if your partner is wanting you to listen or watch, try to reframe it. Try to find the place where your partner loves you the most and they're trying to connect with you and maybe repair. And this is the only way they know how to reach out to you. Because at some point they're just trying to reach out to you. So try not to slap their hand away, because that's what I was doing. I'm not saying that that's what you're doing, but that is 1000% what I was doing. So I don't know. My heart goes out to that. And I just want to be aware of it.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Bye.